fix and start kicking ass, just like it said at the beginning of the program.
Man of the hour, tower of power, too sweet to be sour.
Sending your ass on the jabroni jet to the other side of the territory, brother.
The Alabama Hammer.
Nightmares on the best part of my day.
The goods from the woods.
Hot damn!
Welcome to the Goods from the Woods. My name is Rivers Langley.
My name is Pat Riley.
This is the man of the hour, the tower of power, too sweet to be sour.
And today we are celebrating our 200th episode.
A momentous occasion.
I wish I had a cowbell. It should be a cowbell that...
Yeah.
But
You need more cowbell. This show needs more cowbell.
Did I think this show would get past 16 episodes? At the time, no.
yeah, well,
But we're at 200 now.
we're at 200, and instead of a cowbell, we've brought something even better. Bringing it back for the first time since September of 2013. This man was on episode number 4, our Quantum Leap episode, and here he is joining us for 200. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite comics in L.A.
Jim Bros, everybody. Well, hey, thanks for having me on the show. Can I tell you something about that Quantum Leap show that we did?
Yeah.
So Pat Riley, of course, has a memory of seeing me doing this thing with Weird Al.
Of Al
right?
TV, yeah.
Of Al TV. Since then, numerous people, there'll be photos of me doing something, and I'm like, how many times do I wear that fucking shirt? Because, like, there's just decades of me wearing that shirt. And even, like, at a photo shoot where I was like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do a photo shoot. Well, what do I wear? How about this shirt that barely fits? Perfect. How about this shirt that makes me look like a particular kind of fat? That's awesome. Let me do that.
What particular kind of...
Oh, I'm such a specific kind of fat. I've talked about this before, but I'm skinny guy fat, right?
Fat boy slim.
Like, yeah, if I wear a button-down shirt and it's untucked, you're like, that guy probably takes pretty good care of himself.
Right.
If I tuck it in, you're like, it's over for that guy. That guy's, God, what a piece of shit that guy is.
They really have to do something about tucking in shirts. They really do, because most people, it's really hard to pull it off in this day and age.
No, you don't. And this is what I'll say, too. If you're a white guy, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you shouldn't tuck your shirt in ever, because for sure you look like a racist.
I agree, because I tucked my shirt in once, and somebody said, I asked, do I look in the need? And somebody said, no, you look like a racist store owner. I don't know what it is.
Especially if it's a short sleeve shirt.
It was.
You
Just absolutely do.
Shirt.
And especially just the wide. See, because when we were kids, we didn't know what a wide variety of racists we had. Because when you were a kid, the only racists you learned about were like solid, stereotypical redneck racists. You're like, oh, okay. And like, okay, a guy who owns a truck and he has a particular kind of tattoo, that's a racist. But now you're like, no, the guy with the really short haircuts who looks pretty nice, he's the racist now.
No
Well,
one,
the real shibboleth is the tucked-in shirt, it turns out.
No one could have foreseen tiki torches and white shirts that in the summertime when those guys sweat, you just see their boobs like walking
Right?
around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Boobs, by the way, bro boobs.
Bro boobs, that's
Bro
right.
boobs.
Oh, yeah, it's
Did you
tremendous.
just coin a phrase, Revis?
Yeah, I mispronounced boobs, but in the process, boobs.
But it worked, yeah.
We-
In the summertime when you're sweating real hard.
and you carry a torch and you hate the Jews in the summertime. Donate to the SPLC, everybody. But anyway, yeah, so...
Please do that.
Hey, how often do people make comments about the neighborhood you live in on the show?
as you say that, a rabid dog is barking in the background.
Often, a little bit.
Not that much.
Okay, so I want to tell you something I saw just walking from my car.
Oh, okay.
So there's the classic abandoned refrigerator, of course, with the door ripped off,
Okay,
right?
at least they have the courtesy to do that so children don't become trapped
Punky
inside.
Blues are almost
Right
locked in that
next
thing.
to the abandoned refrigerator with the door ripped off is the biggest animal cage I've ever seen. So that to me it looked like, oh, the animal got out and fucked up this refrigerator, because it's just like there's no, what dog are you? First of all, I don't want to see the guy who can carry the giant cage that has.
Was the cage abandoned as well? it
Yes.
seems? So that's
Something
fun.
happened.
I like that, they have the courtesy to like take off the refrigerator doors so kids don't become trapped in there. But let's not disassemble the kennel. Come on, just leave it in one piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that way, if the kids get trapped in there, at least they can breathe.
And by the way, the kind of refrigerator it is, you couldn't get trapped in there.
Oh, okay.
It's not the old. See, it's
It's
nice
not the
that
one
people
with
do
the
that. It's
pull-down handle.
I don't think
Yeah.
those exist anymore.
So refrigerators are now safe to go into if you find one?
Exactly. So if you're a kid and you see an old refrigerator, it's fine now.
Kids jump in. They are fun.
We actually have children listen to the show. Please don't do that.
Yeah, don't.
Especially on an episode such as this. So we're going to get into a topic that has come up countless times. Both
It's been requested.
Yeah, it's been requested.
Referenced.
We've got
Because it's easy to spell.
it's very easy to spell, and that is the subject of Mr. T. And when we started thinking
Good old
about
Lawrence Trurard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was something that I only found out in the research. I guess it never occurred to me to even figure out what Mr. T, because it's so fundamental. It's like an element.
Well, let me tell you something, Daddy. Those of us who go by Mr. as our name know that that's really the only thing we need to go by.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's no need to look any deeper into this. But yeah, how do you say his name again? It's Tarode?
T.
Trurard.
See, because was that really any more interesting than Mr. T when you find out?
Well, it's
No.
interesting when you see the name because you're not sure if it's like T is short for like Terry or if it's short for the last name.
Right, if it's first name
But
or
he
last
goes for
name.
he goes for like the substitute teacher approach where they have the really crazy name and it's like, no, my name is Mr. Wojciechowski, but you can call me Mr. Dub.
Yeah.
You call me Mr. T, but as if there was any mistaking him for anyone else.
My name is Mr. Gronchkowski. You can call me Mr. T.
Yeah, he's one of those people that I probably told these stories as they happened on the podcast because they did happen kind of across episodes while we were recording. But I saw Mr. T on 2 separate occasions at the same restaurant, which was Mom's Barbecue out in Van Nuys, and the only other person that is that like instantly recognizable, at least of people that I've seen with my own eyes, there's 2 that come to mind. One would be Hulk Hogan, who I saw on a plane going to Atlanta, and I was walking through the first class section. I look and I'm like, that literally can't be anyone else.
Right?
Like, there's no human being that even looks remotely like that guy. The other one, and this was one that we saw when we were on our way to the Yukon Comedy Festival. When we walk into LAX, it's like 6 a.m, and we walk towards the terminal. I immediately recognize the kid from Sandlot who goes, "You're killing me, Smalls!"
You're killing me, Smalls.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Ham from what is his name? Hamilton? I think his name is Hamilton Ham in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, of those 3, though, I mean, Mr. T cut such a distinct figure as well. Like, when I walked to that restaurant the second time, the first time I actually didn't notice him because he had a stocking cap kind of pulled down and he was facing away from me. I only noticed him when I overheard him legitimately in the real world complaining to somebody that somebody was giving him some amount of jibber jabber. Like, I literally heard him use jibber jabber in a sentence to somebody who approached him at
Did
the
he
table.
pity any fools?
No, he didn't. Well, he didn't pity any fools. He did give away a small toy to a child that it was a Mr. T keychain that when you press it, it says,
I want to point this out, Rose. Of your 3 celebrity appearances, it seems the T ones are much more substantial than the fleeting glimpses of Hogan and the kid from Sandlot.
the other 2 were at the airport. You can't learn anything about a person at the airport.
So you seem to be, dare we even say you're a little acquainted with T?
I mean, I've seen him twice. Yeah. And they were both sightings were.
You've seen him
almost
twice. You've heard him say jibber jabber. You possibly got a toy from him.
No. A child that was sitting in the restaurant staring at him. I'm sure I've told this story, but
Yeah.
I'll do it quickly. There was a kid just staring at Mr. T while he was eating, and he was just they were having like a little staring contest, and it was really adorable. This kid was probably 4 years old, a little girl, and Mr. T just goes, "You doing good in school?" And the little kid just goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you like school?" And she goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hold on, I'm gonna give you a toy." And then he gave her this little keychain. And as he was handing it to her, the girl went to grab it and he held it back for a second. He goes, "If I find out your grades are slipping, I'm gonna come take it back." And then let it go.
Mr. T, big proponent of school. How great would it be though if like he evolved, right? And it was like, stay in school, but you know what? Maybe don't go to college because really the loans alone are going to kill you. And I don't know, really just high school's fine.
Maybe just pick up a copy of Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. That'll really knock you on your ass. How do you like them apples?
You get them loans, you'll be able to afford this gold.
Just start.
Join the military like me as long as they don't make you fly no planes.
But yeah.
Little piece of trivia, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I Pity the Fool, not a Mr. T creation.
Is it? It's
from the
Sly
movie
Stallone
from Rocky
wrote it.
3,
Yeah,
right?
Sly
Yeah.
Stallone wrote that line, and he
Ah.
adopted it as his slogan. So
Another-
he should be paying
Wow.
royalties to Sly
Here's what
Stallone.
I remember vividly after he was in Rocky. Mr. T was really vying to be in the next Rocky.
Yes.
And he was really promoting the idea that it was going to happen. And he appeared on a talk show, and he was talking about how he's going to be in the next Rocky movie. And I might have been Carson. Who knows? I don't remember. But they asked him, well, how would that work? Because you were in the last movie, you lost. And he goes, it'll work because Stallone's a genius.
Sly will
Hey, he
sure
coulda-
get me in
it
this.
worked. could've
because I
been-
burned my passport.
Eventually, he could have become an expendable.
That's true. It's a shame that he hasn't.
Actually, why hasn't he?
top?
No,
And
he
I've become
cannot.
class conscious, fool.
He could never be an expendable because the one thing Mr. T is not expendable.
Expendable.
Am
That's
I right?
true.
Come on, guys.
I mean, it's a fair point.
But I just want to pop in real quick, by the way. Emo Phillips. I've seen Emo Phillips, and of all the non bodybuilders who are the most recognizable, that's the first person I thought that when I saw Emo Phillips, no one else looks like Emo Phillips.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy who worked at the telemarketing place I worked at for 6 hours that had the same haircut.
Oh, really?
Like, so from behind, I was like, well, that's either Keith Moon's dead body, or that's working the phones, or that's Emo Phillips. And they turned around and it was a different guy who was really good at telemarketing, it turns out.
Ah.
Mine was Russell Brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's pretty recognizable. It was when he was married to Katy Perry, so it was him and Katy Perry.
Oh, and he had the big hair and
Yeah,
everything.
walking next to each other, and my wife and I we were going down Vermont over in Los Feliz, and we like crossed paths with them, and I looked over and I was like, oh, Russell Brand, and like Katy Perry was not recognizable whatsoever.
Huh.
You know, she was like.
she's a diminutive lady, isn't
Yeah,
she?
she's. I mean, and she was wearing like a scarf around her hair, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and we did the like thing where we walked by and hey, and then they kind of gave us the once over, like, do we know these people?
Right.
You know what my favorite thing to do when I see a celebrity is now? Like, because a couple times I've seen a celebrity. I saw Gina Davis, and I'm a big Gina Davis fan. I love Gina Davis. I think she's
Great
she's
at
hilarious.
archery, too.
Yeah, she's hilarious too. Like when she was in that president show, did you hear her speech about being in that show where she played the first female president?
No.
She said this speech at some award show. She goes, a little girl came up to me and she said she loves the show because now she can imagine she could be president. And everybody claps. And she goes, that didn't really happen. Isn't that great?
It's just trolling people.
Yeah. So I saw Gina Davis, and she looks like Gina Davis. She's an older lady, but she's aged very gracefully, very pretty. And she looked at me, and I could see the look in her eye that was like, boy, I hope this guy doesn't recognize me. And so as a courtesy, one of my favorite things to do with celebrities is to not bother them.
Yeah.
So she obviously didn't want to be bothered by me, and she recognized probably the age I am. She's like, this is a guy who jerked off to me. Come on.
Yeah.
This is a guy who knows me.
Well,
Yeah.
I did the same thing with Scott Steiner.
You
when I
jerked
saw
off to
on the-
him?
Yeah.
Big Papa pumping.
Hey, quit it! Don't do that! Stop looking at me!
You're not supposed to do that in an airport. Save it for the laboratory.
Show some courtesy.
Put a blanket on it. That's what they give them for.
But yeah, I like walked them.
Now they tell me that.
I'm horny.
And I'm not.
I looked over to him and I said, I just kind of gave him the nod and was like, "How you doing?" You know, and that's it.
Well,
That's all you have to do.
that was what happened with me and Hogan.
Yeah.
Like Hogan caught my eye and I caught his, and he was like, "Oh fuck," because he knew. But also, I mean, back to the whole reason.
This guy looks woke.
By the way,
brother. He's
speaking
gonna
of
give me a
Hulk
hard
Hogan,
time.
speaking
Oh, this
of
was before that.
Speaking of Hulk Hogan illustrates how great Mr. T is.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan in real life is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But Mr. T in real life is cooler than you thought he was.
Right.
Miss fucking Hulk Hogan is a racist. He's a jackass. And
He blocked me on Twitter, by the way.
Did he? Nice. That-
Yeah.
He was the only person he blocked
Well, no.
because he retweets everybody.
Yeah, no.
Or at least he used to.
I just, it's because I said that I love that we live in an age, and this was when it first happened. I was like, I love that civilization has come to a point where we have not just sex tapes, not just racists, but racist sex tapes.
My
It was
favorite.
going to happen eventually.
I mean, I
when the
guess
Hitler one came out, that was going to break it big.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
When I was a kid and Mr. T first showed up on the scene, he seemed dangerous. And I remember there was an interview with Mr. T. It was either on 2020. It was one of those shows where they're talking about him and his life and why he's called Mr. T, why he has different colored socks. That came up, and it was to, was to remember the poor and all this stuff. And there was a moment where they were talking about his rough childhood, and he talks and he alludes to the fact that he can't confirm it, because maybe the law is watching, but he may or may not have killed somebody. Mm-hmm. And of course, now you're like, listen, he may or may not have hugged somebody. He didn't kill nobody. Right. But at the time, you thought, oh, Mr. T's scary. And at the time, now that I think about it, what's funny to me is at the time he was smart enough, kind of like in a Will Smith way on The Fresh Prince, where he's like, well, I'm going to use white America's dumb racism against them. Will Smith did it by just being just friendly enough so you guys will just give me a paycheck and watch my fucking show. And Mr. T was like, okay, they think I'm dangerous. I'm going to be cartoonishly dangerous, and I got a career.
Well, yeah, it's funny because everybody mentioned like him being distinctive looking, and part of him being distinctive looking back then was how ripped he was.
Yeah,
he was really strong, and when he put on that like mad face, like when he's boxing, and his nose flares up and it gets all wrinkled, and he has the mouth guard in there, he looked like he could just like stare his way and he could look like he could knock down a wall by staring at it.
Yeah.
He never.
He was ripped when he first came out.
And the guy had Mr. T has like the whitest teeth because I don't think he's ever smoked a cigarette.
Yeah,
he probably flosses and brushes twice a day.
I understand. He has a penchant for milk,
but like when he gets mad and does the thing where he kind of grits his teeth out, like dude, he has a look that's just really intimidating.
It's incredible. He did it on the Howard Stern show, I think one time in the 90s when he was just like celebrity slumming Mr. T. But he did that mad face for a second, and it brought you back to that point when he first came out.
Yeah.
Mr. T, kind of like Randy Savage or somebody like that, was considered really intimidating.
What I like about Mr. T, beyond all of the other stuff, is all of the cartoonish stuff, and the cartoon, of course, but was
Rankin Bass.
Mr. T knows who he is. I love people who know who they are.
Well, it's a lot of it is because he had this very full life before even breaking into showbiz.
True.
Like outside of it is
security guard, right?
A bouncer
He was
and a security guard.
But his distinctive look too.
So Mr. T was so
Let's go all the way back.
Rivers has the page up, but I'm just going to go off the top of my head. Mr. T grew up in was it the Charles Taylor homes, the Taylor homes in Chicago, which was like the picture of the worst housing project.
Yeah, maybe he did have to kill somebody. I don't know.
And he grew up like I think he had like 10 brothers and sisters.
11. He's the youngest of he grew up the youngest of 12 children.
Yeah, and he grew up like super poor, like just basically.
I'll interject. Back when he was poor, I may be conflating things, so correct me if I'm wrong, but back when he was poor, he's like 10 or 11. I remember to make money, him and a group of guys he knew in this van, if you were in trouble, you could hire them. If you knew where they were,
and they had all sorts of expertise,
right? Absolutely.
And
so the key was,
and shit.
And they were maligned for a crime that they didn't commit.
They didn't do it.
Now they're in the Los Angeles Underground.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you can find, because a lot of mercenaries, they don't do pro bono work.
Yeah,
but T was different. A lot of mercenaries, they just like destabilize African countries. They don't save orphanages.
I do like the idea of him going, "I work pro bono, fool."
But he played football he had a football scholarship for, I think, Prairie View A&M.
He went to Prairie View A&M University, and then afterwards got into the Army and served in the military police corps.
Yeah.
And then in 1975 was awarded...
In 1975, he was arrested for a crime he didn't commit.
He was awarded a letter of recommendation by his drill sergeant. I just wanted to read this little bit because this kind of goes back to what you were talking to about him having that crazy reputation. Because he worked as a bouncer, and we'll talk about it in a minute, and worked as a bodyguard for a lot of famous people. And as soon as he sort of kind of got known, especially like in the Hollywood scene as Mr. T, this says, with his reputation, Terota attracted strange offers and was frequently approached with odd commissions, which included assassination, tracking runaway teenagers, locating missing persons, and large firms asking him to collect past due payments by force. Mr. T was once anonymously offered $75,000 to assassinate a target and received in the mail a file of the hit in advance of $5,000, but he refused it. And then this is the quote from Mr. T. He offered me $75,000 to kill his friend. The envelope in the letter contained a round-trip plane ticket, first class, United. Plus, there was $5,000 wrapped in a little package, $50 and $100 bills. And I tell you the honest truth, when I saw that money, I didn't believe it was real. That's the thing. Back in the day, this is pre-internet.
$5,000 in a first-class ticket. I'd kill the guy's friend.
This guy got enough of a reputation as a badass that people were just looking at him like, he'd probably kill someone.
How do you write Mr.? Is it like when you write a letter to Santa Claus where you put Santa Claus North
the post
Pole,
office?
Where you just
Dear
write
Santa,
Mr.
would you
T
kill
in
my
LA?
friend?
Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is a dead friend. Now here's $5,000.
There's $5,000, but I know you have your own transportation. Just don't leave any hoof prints on the roof.
Honest to God, though, that's a lot of character to turn down $5,000 at a particular point in your life.
Yeah, $75,000 on the come. Yeah. The thing that's crazy about Mr. T, so Mr. T is really into symbolism, right? The T thing is kind of a thing where that nobody would call him boy or son, it's like,
Right.
I'm Mr. T,
Yeah.
So there was like a really kind of strong like black power element to it. The thing with different color socks, but the thing with the chains, he started wearing the gold because the gold was from stuff that got lost or confiscated from fights at the nightclubs he worked at. So the chain, when people get into fights or act a fool at a
Get the chains like ripped off.
yeah. Or they would just leave them there. He would take them, and the thing would be like, if you want your chain, come back, I'll give it to you. But nobody asked to Mr. T gave me the chains because they'd just be like, oh my God, I'm not going to mess with this guy.
Guy's terrifying.
This guy's terrifying. Yeah, this guy's like a former football player.
He's a bit like Smaug the dragon. He's he's like, if you want the gold, come and take it.
Because he hoards gold.
He's an intense looking dude. And I don't think he had the mohawk at the time. For a large portion early in his career, when he was doing his bodyguard work, he didn't have the mohawk. And I think he got the mohawk later on.
What was he wearing, I wonder? Because it's kind of hard to picture T with a different dude.
I think it was like just like a short hair.
Just kind of short hair.
Yeah, I mean, this is his high school photo.
there it is.
There's this high school photo.
This is a
he still looks. He looks like T though, like instantly.
but he's a
when you see him.
17-year-old.
It's funny because he's 17 in this picture.
Yeah.
We'll throw this up. You can find us on Twitter. We're at The Goods Pod.
Yeah.
We'll throw this up on there just so you can see it. Mr. T, even at 17, you would not want to fuck with
What's
this dude.
weird too, though, like honestly, so remove everything you know about Mr. T and just look at that picture, and that to me looks like a picture of just a man prepared to demand his dignity. Honest to God, that's what he looks like. He looks like a man who's taken some horse shit and would not care for any more.
Right? Yeah. I'll say so. Shit, you grew up in a 3-bedroom house with 12 brothers and sisters in Chicago, and
in one of the most dangerous housing
grow
projects.
up poor and literally get a reputation just for being able to kick ass. So much so that random people are mailing you hits in the mail.
I mean, he was the bodyguard for Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, Steve McQueen, Michael Jackson, Leon Spinks, Joe Frazier, and Diana Ross.
3 former world heavyweight boxing champions.
Yeah, we're all like, you know what? I can kick your ass, but I'd rather pay this even scarier.
I mean,
dude.
like, Ali was probably like, this guy could take a Noki.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you ever wondered why nobody would fuck with Michael Jackson or Diana Ross or Steve McQueen, it's because you had Mr. T standing there, just like, try it. Come take back your necklace. Come punch.
I did not know Diana Ross was a former world heavyweight.
That must have been a sight.
She did it all, Jim. She did it all. Diana Ross is outstanding.
Remember when she boxed in Central Park in the rain? It was so inspiring.
She knocked out Simon and Garfunkel. Both of them at the same time. has a thing like how like Seagal and other people like that were just kind of like
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the late 70s are such a fucking cool time.
where it's like you own a karate studio or you're a bodyguard or something like that. We're gonna turn you into like
a star,
an entity.
Is that the Schwarzenegger effect?
I think so.
Who was the first like guy who was just like a ripped up either muscle guy or a badass?
Well, I mean,
or
no.
Well, what
so-
about Bruce Lee?
Oh, Bruce Lee. Yeah, that's
Go
fair.
Bruce Lee.
Oh,
That-
yeah, of course,
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, so that'd be the
Yeah.
Bruce Lee
Yeah,
effect.
it'd be the
I guess.
Bruce Lee effect. Yeah.
so-
Because I also feel like Mr. T, at the very least, was getting famous at the same time Schwarzenegger was as well. I don't think
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger predates him.
Schwarzenegger was in all those Mr. Olympias, Mr. Universes, and
Right,
things like that.
right.
I guess so. I guess
But-
he has been famous forever. When was Schwarzenegger first officially a giant movie star? When would you say?
His first big movie was Conan the Barbarian.
And when would that be?
That
The early 80s.
Yeah, early 80s.
So that's what I'm saying. Mr. T, they're at least becoming famous around the
Yeah.
same
But,
time.
but Schwarzenegger, I think, was a little better known first because
Right.
Pumping Iron was pretty
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
And,
And Ferrigno was a known
Yeah,
quantity.
yeah.
Right.
But
Oh,
the
Lou
thing-
Ferrigno,
Right.
yeah.
Well, no, I was the whole reason I brought up the specter of Schwarzenegger was just I was trying to figure out who was the first person who just had like a good, essentially sports reputation, and
Bruce Lee.
and it would be definitely Bruce Lee.
But Mr. T wasn't an athlete unless you count the thing that was his big break. ABC's Wide World of Sports had these things called the World's Toughest Bouncer.
Yep.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
and
say.
this was like the contest, so it's like the world's toughest bouncer, and Mr. T. It was tailor made for Mr. T.
Listen to this shit.
tailor-made for
me.
Listen to this shit. During his bouncing days, Mr. T was in over 200 fights, and he was sued a number of times, but won each case. Quote, I've been in and out of the courts as a result of my beating up somebody. I've been sued by customers who I threw out that claimed I viciously attacked them without cause, and or I caused them great bodily harm as a result of beating I supposedly gave them, he once said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he 200 fights this guy won.
Wow.
just amazing.
I mean, but the bouncer has the advantage in fights. So I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
because
you
they're
have to keep-
sober, and Mr. T is scary.
Yeah.
Of course.
And they don't have to worry about the law is always kind of on the bouncer side.
Yeah, hell yeah. Shout out to Big Dan listening out there in Opelika, Alabama.
But they had the world's toughest bouncer contest, and these things had like kick through a door. You know, like these contests, it's just like, all right, kick through a door, or
you
have
know,
like
in case the bar catches on fire, you have to
or
rescue
have
someone from the upstairs.
Or they would have these tough man boxing contests. And T would win these tough man boxing contests, and like it was almost like Kimbo Slice in a way, where it was just like these weren't.
Oh, that's actually
These weren't like
sanctioned
fights.
Yeah.
Right. There were boxing matches. These were just like tough man contests. I mean, of course, Kimbo was doing it in the backyard of houses in Miami,
Right.
Not on network television. But T had this reputation of just like he knocks out these schlubs in 58 seconds.
Right.
And Sylvester Stallone watched one of these world's toughest bouncer contests and was
Wow,
like,
man.
I need to get this guy.
Who's this guy?
in this movie?
He's
Now,
fucking
do you know
scary.
now?
But he wasn't supposed to be the star, but he became the star because he's T.
yeah, because you
Well-
talk to him and you're like, this dude
Yeah.
is charisma for days.
If I'm
Beats Rocky.
remembering correctly, Mr. T benefits from the fact that Stallone originally hired a real boxer, and then in one particular scene, the real boxer didn't mean to, but threw a real boxer's punch and almost just leveled Stallone, and he went, "Oh, right, real boxers can box.
They don't pull their punches.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a change of casting.
And I'd imagine that it's tough to do fight choreography for a real boxer, like because
It's hard to do fight choreography when you're on the ground knocked out.
yeah.
but it's like if you're a real boxer, it's almost like amateur wrestlers in pro wrestling. Like if you're a great amateur wrestler, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a good pro wrestler because your impulse is to be like, oh, I'm going to do what I do as a professional, which is for boxing, tuck and hit, and it's not like these like fight sequences that are choreographed. Carl Weathers was a football player, right? And he did it really well because he wasn't trained to be. I'm not trained to be a boxer, but I can be trained to go through this sequence of moves.
Right.
So yeah, if you actually had somebody like George Foreman or Leon Spinks or somebody like that, I think it might have been Leon Spinks. But I'm
Maybe
not
it
sure.
was.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I just remember the story of just at one point a real punch comes out of the body of this guy who's trained to punch for real. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
even really, that's your instinct. You're an actual athlete.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not-
Right.
And the thing is that Mr. T isn't a particularly tall guy, So Stallone can do the whole sort of imagination where it's just like, oh, I'm not really 5'5". I am, boxing somebody that's big but not cartoonishly big. Like when he was wrestling with Thunder Lips, he's like, yeah, it's 7 foot tall, 400 pounds Thunder Lips. It's like Hulk Hogan is not 7 foot tall. Yeah. Hulk Hogan is an inch taller than I am. Yeah. But it's Stallone being 5'5", being like, no, I can't say I'm 5'5". I'm a heavyweight boxer. I am 6 feet tall.
So let's talk about Rocky 3 for a minute, because Rocky 3 is actually the first one that I ever saw. And I may have mentioned this on the show, but I saw Rocky 3. They were showing it on TBS's Dinner and a Movie with Paul Gilmartin. And the reason I tuned in was not because I didn't know shit about the movie. All I saw was that it was like, tonight, Dinner and a Movie with Paul Gilmartin and special guest, big sexy Kevin Nash.
Oh, that was when they joined the NWO, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dinner and a Movie turned heel.
Yeah, see, that's bullshit. Because if the NWO really wanted some good movie hosts.
Paul Gilmartin was the first person I knew in LA who was reasonably successful. We used to play poker at his house.
No shit.
Really?
Yeah, he's a very, very nice dude. Now he, if we can give it, now he does the mental health podcast hour.
Yeah. The what is it? The mental health happy hour. Or
happy
something
hour.
like that?
Yeah. He has done a lot of self work, and now he helps a lot of people do chat and stuff.
But I was 12 and I was watching wrestling. I was watching probably, I assume it was Thursday Night Thunder on TBS, and they were like, "Hey, tomorrow night, Dinner and a Movie with Kevin Nash," and Kevin Nash was my favorite at the time. So I was like,
that has to be. I'm sorry, Rose.
Great.
That has to be the dumbest reason anybody's ever watched a Rocky movie.
Well, I was fucking 12. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, when we were growing up, Rocky was so big. Every kid knew who Rocky was.
I legitimately think that that's the best Rocky. I honestly think it's better than the first one. I think the first one's fucking overrated. Really? I think it's a fine movie. It deserves an Oscar as much as anything does, because who gives a fuck? It's an Oscar. But the third one is so fun.
The third one is the best Rocky movie.
Yeah.
The first Rocky is the best piece of cinema.
Right. It's not unlike
but
the Rambo franchise.
Well, no, so it's like the first one is very much like you'd put it in the same category as these kind of like, Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
These kind of auteur movies, right? These things are like classically, new Hollywood.
Yeah, Taxi Driver.
Yeah, pre-New Hollywood.
It was made for under $1 million, I think.
Yeah, and Rocky 3 invented the 1980s.
I agree. Yeah. Survivor, Hulk Hogan, Mr. T. Boom, all there.
Yeah.
So that movie is 1982. The next year is when the A-Team starts.
Yeah.
So,
let's say you figured out the T story reverse, Rivers.
Right.
Mr. T was about as big as a star as you could get for a couple of years, but the height of his stardom was pretty meteoric.
Oh, yeah.
And it pretty much coincided with that movie and when the A-Team was big on TV.
Sure, yeah.
I think, was it Mondays at 8? I think the A-Team was
You're right, yeah.
Because I remember the next morning, I think it was reading or whatever you have in school. Yeah. Every kid the next morning sitting in the schoolroom talking about what happened on the A-Team the night before.
Expert B.A.
A-Team is such a funny show too, and it deserves all the ridicule it gets for this particular detail, which is it's one of those awesome shows where, okay, these guys are war vets. There's all kinds of machine guns. There's, of course, cantaloupe cannons and stuff. There's all this stuff, but the body count is pretty close to zero.
Right, zero. People do get killed, but I don't think ever by the A-Team. The bad guys occasionally kill
contact.
people.
Yeah.
The best part, though, when you were a kid was always that montage in the middle where they would play some rocked-up version of the A-Team theme song, and they would turn their van into some kind of cantaloupe. Basically, like, what was that movie? With Belushi and all that. Animal House.
Yeah.
Basically, the end of every movie was like a military version of Animal House, where they turn their van into some kind of cantaloupe deathmobile and like thwart the bad guy.
It's amazing. I one of the most unintentionally hilarious episodes of television ever was the A-Team where Boy George gets
Yes, and it was on the tail end of the A-Team's charisma.
Yeah.
So who was slumming off of who in that episode?
I would say, I would say that Boy George was definitely in the essence.
By the way, he'll be appearing at the Greek, Boy George. I'll be
really?
appearing at the Greek with the B-52s.
What?
And it's Boy George with Culture Club, which I don't understand what that means.
It's all I think it's all the original dudes from Culture Club, like
So
John
why
Moss,
wouldn't you just
Mickey
call
Hay,
it Culture Club? I guess
Roy
you
Hay, Mickey, whatever, Craig. That's what it was.
You know, it's
I guess
gotta
because he
say Boy
tours
George.
on his own.
The reason I
it's
saw
like, you know, the first album was The Time, and then you had to put
Yeah.
the star out front, so it became Morris
Well, yeah,
Day
but when
and The
Morris
Time.
Day was Morris Day at the time, that's because it's not the whole original band.
Oh, okay. Well, point is, you know,
Yeah, I know this because
It's a ticketing
Friday
thing, I
I
bet.
went to see Bare Naked Ladies. with
Oh, no
Better
shit.
Than Ezra.
Okay. Wow.
And then the opening act was this Scottish lady, and then she sings the song, and the song goes woohoo, woohoo.
Katie Tunstall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
after that song,
Wow.
very good, Pat. And after
What a
that
fucking
song,
VH1 morning jump pull that
that's
was.
it.
Yeah.
And after that song, she goes, "Yeah, that's who I am," because she knew everybody once
Yeah.
they heard that song would go, "Oh, this lady's famous."
Oh.
She was hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I know you from an Olive Garden commercial.
Highly recommend, by the way, go see the Bare Naked Ladies live. What a great band!
So they were better than Ezra.
Oh, I gotta say,
Yeah,
they're-
Ezra must. Yeah.
yeah,
Who is this Ezra?
Yeah, Ezra's. You know, he slipped.
Better Than Ezra was surprisingly entertaining, but I can see why they faded quickly.
Yeah.
because they have a lot of good hits, but as a band, they clearly want to be. Well, they clearly like to just riff, and they're
Yeah.
practically not.
Are they a jam band?
Yeah, they're really fun.
Did they do that song? Dancing in the phone and on away. That's
Probably,
I think that was their hit.
but they were funny, but then the Bare Naked Ladies played.
Yeah. So but the I think the Culture Club thing. Culture Club was a hell of a band.
Yeah.
Boy George's got an amazing voice.
So
Yes, he
what was
does.
the
Yeah.
what was the A-Team episode?
Remember Face, the guy from the guy that was on Battlestar Galactica. He used to do, when he wasn't a mercenary, he would do like music booking, and so they were in like some little mining town, and he accidentally booked Boy George instead of a country band, so they were
Oh,
going to do
right.
like a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
wave night. But of course, it turns out there's something going on in the town with some bad guys and the
Yeah.
sheriff and all that stuff, and miners or something. so.
The A-Team has to protect Boy George from being chased out of town for his.
But say what you want about Boy George, but he was in the firefight just
Yeah.
like anybody else.
Tuesday on the 18th. Boy George. Join him for rockin' and stompin'. By George, can the A-Team keep up? Tuesday.
I'm Cowboy George.
And I'm Boy George.
Take your pick.
Tuesday, the A-Team.
Be there, By George.
Yeah, Boy George is tough, man. Boy George is
And
from.
he was
Boy
enjoying
George is
it.
Irish. You know.
Remember, he was like, "Okay, BA," and he was really enjoying.
You know,
the
Boy
fight.
George, in a particular kind of way, is for the gay community is the Mr. T of that era.
Yeah.
because he goes really big with imagery, like the dress and everything.
Right,
is
yeah,
very,
yeah.
and he goes, "All right, you idiots, you're scared of gay people. Well, I'm going to be the most stereotypical, and I'm going to get you to pay me for it."
Yeah.
Right.
He does the same thing Mr. T does, which he's like, "Okay, well, your whole thing is you're scared of us. Well, you're going to be scared then."
Right.
And Boy George is like, "You know what? I am going to be so ridiculously out that
Yeah.
you're going to be pretty sure Freddie Mercury is straight."
And on top of it, the thing that's the other layer of Boy George is I'm gonna get it so that when you look at me the first time, you're like, "Oh man, this chick is hot," and then you realize that Boy George is George O'Dowd, and then you're like, "Oh no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that."
I never thought he was hot. I always thought he looked like Ronald McDonald. He wore jumpsuits all the time when he was really big.
Well, it's like
But yeah, Pipes, man, what a singer!
Yeah, hell yeah.
dude, yeah.
So, but yeah,
Boy George on the A-Team.
yeah, but you brought up that.
Hulk
That's
Hogan on there too twice. Also claimed he was in Vietnam on the show.
wait, as Hulk Hogan?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, they
But
had to
Hulk
do-
Hogan also, if you look at the Gawker case, made a lot of other claims.
I was
about
gonna say,
himself.
yeah.
he's
that
made more-
Terry Bollea
have a 10-inch penis, brother. Hulk Hogan has a 10-inch penis.
I want to be like the Hulkster and just go in court and say to everybody, "Look, just for the record, no, I don't have a 10-inch dick. I know everybody
Yeah.
thinks I do. Just for the record, it's not 10 inches, everybody."
And by the way, I got this do-rag approved, brother.
Hey, here's
like
a
a
little
priest.
penis trivia for you, by the way. Here's a little penis trivia for you.
Little
So,
penis trivia?
This
or
should
just
be a
penis
segment
trivia?
on the show.
yeah, so
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for Jim Bruce's penis trivia.
Little
Here he
penis
is.
trivia.
sometimes you get insecure about the size of your dick, right? Sometimes people will do that, and you compare your dick to other guys' dicks.
Can't
if
help
you
it.
want to feel good about the size of your dick, compare the size of your dick to our closest primate relatives. We actually have a pretty big dick for primates.
I've heard that. Yeah, gorillas. Gorillas are kind of hung like a light
nice
switch.
dry gorillas.
Yeah.
Well, next time I find a nice lady, I'm just going to go up to her and say, "Hey, I got a bigger dick than a baboon, baby."
That's
so
right.
So
and a more colorful ass. So let's get it on.
Yeah.
1984, the year. So the year after A-Team starts is 1984, and that year, two big milestones in the T-verse, starting with him co-hosting Saturday Night Live with Hulk Hogan, with the musical guest The Commodores, which. What a fun fucking episode that would be.
Yeah.
Those are the good old days.
And I believe that's the if I'm not mistaken, the Lionel Richie-less Commodores.
Yes, yeah. That would have been post Richie for sure.
It would have been the good old days for the Commodores then.
Yeah, but I bet they're still fun. Pride of Tuskegee, Alabama, the Commodores there. The other thing that happened in 84, TV movie comes out called The Toughest Man in the World.
Oh, yeah.
That we're going to talk about right now.
Great theme song, by the way, because Mr. T... if you have ever seen Be Somebody or Be Somebody's Fool or any of the clips from that, Mr. T loves to rap.
Mother, there is no other like mother, so treat her right. Mother, I always love her. My mother, so treat her right, treat her right.
Treat her right, treat your mother right.
Mother. There is no other.
Actually, Ice-T wrote a lot of the verses for that movie.
Really? Well, explain, because those raps in that movie are good. The things he says in that make sense. If you don't wear clothes, you will get arrested.
Hey, everybody got to wear clothes, and if you don't, you get arrested. Clothes express your personality, so express yourself, and not someone else. Do Calvin Klein, Bill Blass, or Gloria Vanderbilt wear clothes with your name on it? No, of course not. So you table the label and wear your own name.
With the mustard socks and her ketchup sash, she's a real hot dog.
By the way, just so you guys know, if you're listening and you don't know, Be Somebody or Be Somebody's Fool, it's a motivational video.
if you've ever seen the thing online, they always clip it out for the mother one where it's like, "Mother, there is no other."
And that's a good rhyme too.
Yeah.
And the people don't like it, or just people don't have mamas.
Yeah. But yeah, Ice-T wrote that actually, if I remember correctly.
And he wrote a good rap.
And so it's writing it for another member of the T family.
Now, let me ask you something.
He wrote that, and then he flipped the page over and wrote 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know,
the Toughest Man in the World theme song is amazing because it just goes right. We have the movie up.
Yeah, so if you want to check this
Amazon
out,
Prime.
Yeah, if you've got Amazon Prime, this movie is on there for free.
Oh man!
Wait, because the toughest man in the world is the one who knows the right way to go. The toughest man in the world, the strong inside.
This looks like the opening to like a Norman Lear sitcom or something.
Yeah. The song is great, but this movie is without a doubt. We talk
without of doubt.
We talked about Rocky III inventing the 80s. Toughest Man in the World, which was on CBS, was the most 1980s movie of all time.
Yeah.
Because it has everything.
First of all, I love that the letterbox of like the actual screen that this takes up. It's not that it's just formatted for TV. It damn looks like an Instagram square.
Yeah.
Like it's
So I'm not ruining anything because this movie is seen to be believed, right? It's one of those things where it's like, me telling you the plot is not going to change anything. The beginning of it, he stops a robbery, a knife-wielding robber who is this character Billy, who becomes like somebody that Mr. T takes on, or in this movie, Bruce Brubaker takes on.
Yeah, his name is Bruce.
Takes on as his, he's going to mentor him to not be in a life of crime. But he's a bouncer by day. This is semi-autobiographical. Bouncer by day.
It's like his Purple Rain.
Yeah, it is. It's his Purple Rain.
It's his 8 Mile. It's his Purple
he has,
Rain.
and he sings the theme song to it. But okay, so he's a bouncer by day.
It's his Cool as Ice.
But by night, by day, he runs a youth center.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
And he coaches the kids to stay off drugs, because this movie's all about staying off drugs.
That's a thing, by the way, to bring up about Mr. T, and I think it's kind of the whole point of this whole episode is that so many celebrities would make a movie where they tried to make themselves look benevolent, tried to make themselves look great. this is who this guy actually is.
So-
Yeah.
I saw him with my own eyes tell a child in a restaurant to nobody to stay in school.
Yeah.
Mr. T fucking rules.
He was really popular with kids.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
always really concerned about being like a positive role model.
Yeah, and he is.
So-
He's
so-
You know what
inspiring
he
to me.
did in a lot of ways. I wonder if he did the thing that the original, the TV Superman did, because
George Reeves.
I think it was
Yeah.
George Reeves who quit smoking because he didn't want kids to see Superman smoking.
Yeah.
Like he actually was like, I want to try to be better for these.
Oh, he had to talk a kid out of shooting him one time.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Mr. T, he'd just take the bullet.
I was gonna say, Mr. T would just eat the fucking bullet.
Yeah. But so T. So Bruce Brubaker. There's nothing better than watching Mr. T coaching basketball. It's one of those scenes where it's like. It's not a 5-on-5 game. It's like 10 kids versus 10 kids in a basketball game.
Which
like,
is how the game was originally conceived.
Sure, yeah.
True to the origins of basketball.
and he's
In a
giving
peach pit.
coaching advice where he's just like, drive the ball.
Well, you have sound
Yeah.
fundamentals. You've been coached by
Yeah.
kids.
It's
Here it
great.
goes.
Keep it moving.
Like it's a 7-on-7 game right here.
There's way too many people on
There's
the
way
court.
too many people on the court.
You guys begin to look good. Now you see the difference when you wait for the shot? Yeah. Outside, we're not so strong. But inside, we are deadly.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to split you up in you guys in randomly colored shirts versus you guys in randomly colored shirts. Good luck figuring it out.
All right, guys, this
assholes.
is a classic
Yeah.
20-person basketball game.
And there's break dancers all in this movie. It's so 1980s. They get billed $200,000. He has to save the youth center, so he gets into the world's strongest bouncer contest in order to get the money. This movie has two of the greatest fight scenes of all time. So start it. Okay, so if you're going to start it, if you're watching along with us, this is the time code. If you're on Amazon Prime, Toughest Man in the World, is 24 minutes, 5 seconds. Or 21 minutes, 24 minutes, 5 seconds.
Please don't go. Let me
So a
call
guy
the
goes
cops.
through a-
Eddie's out there with 3 guys and they're looking for trouble.
The way I feel right now, they come to the right place.
It opens up, a
You
guy goes
stay
through
here.
a bunch of plates. It's Billy. Goes through just a stack of plates.
Sally, I'm telling you for the last time.
Tell this!
You're going with me. Come on.
This is the most 80s fight that's ever happened.
Bring it to me.
It's a woman in a unitard being tossed around by a man in a corduroy jacket and a mustache.
Mr. T is in a, he looks like he's going to prom. He's wearing a tuxedo.
Balloon? They're fighting on stage for some reason.
Yeah. There's a lot of throwing. So it's a throw-based offense that Mr. T has.
He no-sold that punch to the gut.
And he launches people into space. Like, this is...
Oh, yeah.
Like, this guy just scrapes the ceiling. Mr. T throws him with ease.
Heads up, Bruce!
Heads up, Bruce!
And he's fighting, like, 2 guys. Like, he's fighting 3 guys. They all look like Kenny Powers. Wait.
Oh my God! A man just tried to break a chair on his face and failed.
And he does not move.
No-sold it.
he
doesn't
no-sold a
move
chair shot
an
to the
inch.
face.
Like, it's obvious.
He just punched that guy over a table.
And it looks like, what it looks like is when he gets hit by this chair, it looks like they have
the other
a
bad
piece
guys
of
are running
plexiglass in front of him.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hit the plexiglass, and he's on the other side of it. So it's like there's an imaginary wall that the chair hits. So it doesn't even make contact with Mr. T in any way. It's just like he swings it, and this is like a dining room chair. He swings it, and the thing just like disintegrates in a force field that starts like an inch away from Mr. T's face. The thing just explodes.
Well, T is so mean he can actually generate a force field just by staring at people.
Yeah, and it's and he's and his tuxedo, not one blemish on it after getting hit by this chair. He launches these guys like 20 feet in the friggin' air.
And there's always balloons when they hit
there's
the
always
ground,
balloons
too.
because it's a nightclub. So in order to really save the youth center, he has to fight Tanker in one of those like tough man boxing contests, right?
Yeah, of course.
So if you but the mob guy doesn't want T to win because he's got ulterior motives, and he wants to, in order to T to lose, he wants to inject him with drugs. So he's got a syringe. So the thing is that he's going to give him these drugs that are ensuring that Mr. T, Bruce Brubaker, is not going to save the youth center because he's on drugs, so he can't win the boxing match.
He can't win the boxing match if he's got a hard on.
It's not. It's not clear if he's.
That's not true because I'm not saying I boxed a lot, but I boxed with a Woody once, and boy, did I clean.
Yeah, I mean that's why you're not supposed to have sex before the boxing matchup.
Yeah, because
So you have a
they would
raging-
swing at me and they would just hit me, you know, in the Jimmy.
Yeah, you got a raging hog because you want to end the fight fast.
They were so distracted by the size of that thing, I just turned around and hit them with it.
I mean, that's a plot line in Rocky where it's just like Adrian.
He hit people with his dick?
No, Rocky, like Adrian's just like, come on, let's get inmates. We can't do that before a fight. Yeah, no.
Women weaken legs.
Yeah,
I think that was
that's what it was. Women weaken legs. I can't nut. But okay, so so we're not clear if it's like a thing where he can't pass a piss test, so he loses the match, or if he's like getting injected with these drugs and he just loses all of his ability. So 127-18. This is the greatest fight scene in the history of all time. They're in like a bridal catering complex, like a complex where they do weddings, like cater for weddings. T comes in,
fight, and he's in on it with them.
and Billy tells him the news.
Kid is leaving with me. You and the kid are leaving when and how I say. Grab him! Billy!
So he's fighting what appears to be Judd Hirsch from Taxi, the dad from that '70s show, and just like
Clarence Boddicker,
and various janitors. But yeah, and they're in. So there's like all sorts of food and wedding cakes, and stuff like that around. So this is for the kiddies. Like it's.
Yeah, well, they're at a catering company.
Yeah, so this boxing match, and they just want to inject T with drugs. That's what they don't want to beat his ass. They don't want to kill him. They want to inject him with this syringe full of these mystery drugs. And Billy's trying to take on one of these guys, and T's got the other 7 or 8. We got some fighting with popcorn.
Yeah,
and Tanker's into it. Like Tanker's just like, all right, this is awesome. So this fight scene is ridiculous, right? You're just like, okay, this is your normal everyday television movie fight scene. It's not that great. I mean, it's kind of silly. All right, the mafioso guy has the drugs, so he's walking up to him with the syringe, like he wants to shoot him.
It's easy to just inject somebody.
I don't want drugs.
And Mr. T, by the way, does have leopard skin
weight belt,
weight belt,
but wait a second. But this is where it gets good. Because the kids hear about what's going on. T's in this he's precarious situation.
School bus.
Hell yeah! They drove a school bus into the fucking catering factory.
A Bluebird school bus out of nowhere just plows through the wall, and everybody's just like, "What the fuck?" And the kids come out. And now we got the flunkies versus
the kids.
The kids.
Yeah.
And this is where business is about to
Deus
pick up.
Ex Busio.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nacho cheese in the face.
Because
it's nacho cheese.
Yeah, because little kids cannot handle hand-to-hand combat, but what they're really good at is food fights.
Oh, we've all seen Three Ninjas.
Yeah, and kids, their martial art is food fighting. And Tanker loves this.
That's spectacular.
Yeah. It is the most ridiculous fight scene ever.
For people who are going to watch it, don't tell them whether or not T wins. You wait till the end.
Yeah, does T win? Does the youth center get repossessed
We don't
and
know,
turned
yeah.
into a Barnes & Noble's bookstore? You don't know.
I think the mobsters were going to turn it into a gambling drug house.
Probably, yeah. Where they make kids do drugs.
Had you ever seen this movie before, Jim?
I have not seen this particular piece. I probably did, to be honest. I'm a very old
It
man,
is one of the. It's without it. It's an hour and 30 minutes, and it is the most 1980s thing. And I don't know if
There should have been a guy though for sure who said, we didn't get him with the drugs. Let's try to stick him with some gambling.
Yeah, I don't know if the youth center storyline came before this, But this
is the trope of saving the youth center.
Yeah, this is where it kind of begins and becomes popularized. There's breakdancing. There's don't do drugs. I mean, it's all about Mr. T. If Mr. T does drugs, he ceases to be Mr. T.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, wasn't the youth center, Save the Youth Center, just a variation on the old time Save the Orphanage?
Save the Orphanage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
similar.
this is like a modern day urban 1980s. Yeah, because it's like the kids need a place after school because otherwise they're going to become latchkey kids and do drugs and get involved in crime.
And then they'll never be Mr. T.
Yeah, that's right.
So hot, but you don't want to stop.
See if you can do what we're doing. Get on your feet. 10 knee bends, 20 jumping jacks, 5 push-ups, running on the spot every day. Start stretching.
So T was just the king of guest appearances.
I remember the Alvin and the Chipmunks one. He comes up and he says, "You kids can't have any of these fries." "Oh, gee, Mr. T, not without this ketchup."
You're late. What's the word, C-Team?
Failure. Yeah, we blew it. We'll never get Dave's watch back.
Everybody hates quitters, especially me.
And it was, you know what it was, is the same people that animated Alvin and the Chipmunks. I said it earlier, but I got it wrong. I said Rankin Bass, but I meant Ruby Spears. Those were the same people that animated Alvin and the Chipmunks made the Mr. T cartoon. That said, I won't say this about Mr. T. Mr. T's fashion.
Yeah.
Right. We all know the tube socks. We all know the gold chains.
Yes. Sure.
But I say, if you watch vintage Mr. T, there's certain combinations that he likes to wear. We know he likes to wear tuxedos for formal occasions.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you look, Mr. T likes 3 different types of outfits. He likes sweatpants, like sweatsuits. He likes overalls.
Yep.
Denim overalls, and he likes army stuff, like camouflage. So if you look at vintage T, he's often wearing one or some combination of either like denim overall jeans, army stuff that's camouflage, or sweatsuits.
And Adidas usually. He was a big Adidas guy.
Now, am I right in saying not that long ago he fought cancer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Here's the thing, Log. Anything aside, Mr. T is a badass from the word go. Everything about, watch his appearances on Conan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, back in October of 2000, I decided to take in the beautiful fall foliage here in the Northeast, and I spent the day in an apple orchard with a very good friend of mine, and we picked apples together. Here's what happened. Beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, yes. The great Mr. C.
Mr. C, I like that.
Yes, definitely. We're going to take some apples home?
Yeah, we can take apples home whenever you want, you know?
And feed the homeless.
Yeah, or keep them for ourselves.
Yes.
I'm a greedy person. Anyway, Mr. T, I think this looks like a pretty good tree right here. Do you like it?
I agree. Yes, sir. It's a good tree.
Now, I think instead of shaking the tree or climbing up into the tree, I think if you just yelled at the tree, the apples might fall down. You want to try that?
Hey, Apple, you better fall down. And don't let the apple come up there, Apple.
That's good.
Oh, it's going to be bad if I come up there. I'm going to cut you into pieces. I'm going to peel you and I'm going to skin you. Then I'm going to eat the carb.
I pity the apple that don't fall down.
I pity him, too. You heard what Conan said? Mr. C, I forgot. Mr. C. It ain't working. Let's try something else.
He's a guy who's just so comfortable in his own skin, and he fought and kicked the shit out of cancer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to read this because there's this the thing about his gold chains,
Yeah,
right?
this is such a good story,
This is so fucking cool. And it is a thing that it's a joke that was kind of. It's a joke that was maybe overdone, but there was a certain point where he stopped wearing the gold necklaces, and if you weren't following him closely, everybody's joke was like, "Oh, well, he's not as doesn't get as much work now," and he had to pawn them. It's actually not true. So Mr. T stopped wearing virtually all of his gold, one of his identifying marks, after helping with the cleanup of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And he said that, quote, "As a Christian, when I saw other people lose their lives and lose their land and their property, I felt it would be a sin before God for me to continue wearing my gold. I felt it would be insensitive and disrespectful to people who lost everything, so I stopped wearing it." And so, so that's so he's the real deal, man.
But he was going a little over the top with the gold because he was really big into the
was getting crazy.
gold-plated plate with the fork, knife, and spoon. Like it was. I think he wears it in the Pastor Cavassier music video. The Busta Rhymes one.
Anybody gives him some food, he's got a whole setup right there.
That's right.
So unless you're a resident of Lake Forest, Illinois, and he was cutting down all those old.
Oh, that was hilarious. Yeah, I saw that in the article.
Trees.
They called it the Illinois Chainsaw Massacre. He cut down like 150 trees on his land in Illinois.
Wow, that made the news.
In Lake Forest, which is like
that was a big flap when it happened.
That's amazing.
But so Mr. T, and we didn't even get into the fact that Mr. T is responsible for we didn't even get into the WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2 stuff, but Mr. T actually has a special place in my heart because when I was in high school, I ran for class president. And I had my stickers.
And it said, I pity the school?
No, it was the individual labels and had the picture of Mr. T because I was a big fan of the Mr. T versus websites that were.
Oh, yeah, that were big in the early days of the internet.
GeoCities, that was the first, that and ate my balls.
Mr. T even ate some balls.
I think it was the first to eat balls. Or was it Chewbacca eating balls first?
It was one of those two.
Yeah. But
T and Chewbacca are the original ball munches.
Mr. T versus was the greatest. But I had a picture of Mr. T and it said, I pity the fool who don't vote for Pat. And I won. I won that contest, and I think I can put it all on Mr. T. And in fact, there was a joke for a while that we should have gotten Mr. T to be we didn't have the money, obviously, but have Mr. T be our commencement address at our high school.
Well, yeah.
Which would be amazing because he just would have talked about his mom.
Yeah,
because he loves his mom. But yeah, Mr. T's amazing, and I think one of the funniest the first times I saw Mr. T, one of the first, because I was a bit younger when I discovered Mr. T, was on Hollywood Squares. I forgot who was always the center square. Mr. T was always on there, and he had one of those flex sticks, like the thing that's the spring that you flex, and he kept using that, and I thought it was the most badass thing where it's I don't know what that thing he has is, but I want one. And I was 4. I just wanted to walk around with my flex stick because he would just that's all he did. I think that's what he was big on, was that.
He did. I think he carried that around for when him and Hogan were doing the publicity for the first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think he would use the flex stick a lot in interviews and that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it was awesome.
It's a way for him not to talk and look intimidating.
Yeah. T got me elected. And maybe T got me into college based on me, having those
there you go. See, look at that. He's really big on school, so he would be glad
T
to know
made me
that,
succeed.
Pat.
He put me on the course that I'm on today. He was. He made me realize my dreams.
It's a funny evolution to me to see him go from. He had this image of this tough guy.
Yeah.
And not to say that he isn't a tough guy, but that was the entire image in the very beginning. The entire image is, you're afraid of me. I'm a big, scary black man. And I'm smart enough to get you to pay me for that. And then he transforms into who he really is, which is a big, tough man who's also ridiculously lovable.
Yeah, got a heart of gold.
Loves kids.
Yeah.
At the height of his popularity, he was probably something of a children's entertainer star.
Yeah.
Because he was best known for
So this
kid
is
stuff.
not my story, but I'll tell you a funny story from my friend Paul Goebel. Do you know Paul Goebel?
King of TV from Beat the Geeks. Yeah, of course.
He was at a Beat the Geeks appearance at a mall somewhere, and Mr. T was also there and was doing a Q&A. And
were these things connected, or were just one of them was at Belk and the other one was at Gafers?
Yeah, exactly. It would just happen to be there. It was a big TV event.
Yeah.
So there was lots of stuff going on, and Mr. T was answering questions. And people are asking Mr. T questions, and this kid raised
Who do you pity, etc.
Exactly. This
fool.
kid
Next question.
raised his hand
What's your prediction?
and asked Mr. T a question, and it was very clear that the kid was autistic.
Uh-huh.
He just had problems.
Yeah.
And he said, Mr. T, why are you always so mean to Murdoch? And so this handicapped kid has asked Mr. T a question.
Yeah.
And everybody gets quiet because what do you say to the kid, because the kid doesn't even really necessarily understand that Mr. T is a person and this person was on the TV show.
He thinks it's B.A. Baracus.
Yeah. And so Mr. T, without skipping a beat, because he was a crazy fool. And everybody goes crazy. The kid feels satisfied. And everybody's like, yeah, Mr. T's the greatest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, can we give a shout out to Murdoch, by the way? Because he was really funny on that show. And when I was a kid, I actually had the T-shirt with a picture of him that said Howling Mad on top. And then on the bottom it said Murdoch.
So, you said goodnight. You saw him on Silver Spoons.
I saw that the other night. I was high. I woke up and Silver Spoons is on, and Mr. T, who's ripped as shit, comes in the room. And he's talking to Ricky Schroeder. I was like, holy shit, I gotta go back to sleep because I'm too high to deal with this.
Now, who can tell me where the Declaration of Independence was signed? Ricky.
It was signed in Philadelphia.
Right. Now, who can tell me what brought about the need for the Declaration of Independence?
Simply put, the colonists were being unfairly taxed by the English crown without having any input into the way they were being governed, or as this is most commonly known, taxation without representation.
Excellent, Mr.
T.
Do you have a first name?
First name is Mr. Middle name is that period. Last name, T.
Everything about him was symbolism, right?
Yeah, of course,
I don't know if it was a thing of like, oh, this looks really cool, and then I'm going to invent the symbolism afterwards.
Which it could have been.
Which it could have been, right? I mean, a lot of times that is the case. But there is a
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's like a sort of thing where he knows how to tell a narrative. Like the thing with the socks. Like, I wear the socks that don't match because I was, poor growing up, and, I rarely had socks that matched, right?
Punky Brewster took that from
Or the thing with the mohawk, where he was just like, I was reading a National Geographic and I saw a story about the Mandinka tribe in Africa, and their warriors had mohawks, and I took it on because I want to be strong like my African ancestors.
Was that true? Because the T Mohawk was a bit of an unusual mohawk, wasn't it?
Well, really but if you watch Be Somebody or Be Somebody's Fool, he talks about the mohawk about being, I got this from the Mandinka tribe.
I know he said that, but was that ever actually true? Because if you look at the T Mohawk,
he says it in interviews frequently about it.
But I've never seen a Mandinka with one.
Yeah, but there was the thing with the Mr. T thing where he was like, my older brother came home from Vietnam, and everybody was calling him boy and son and stuff like that, and he was like, I will never have anybody call me boy because I'm Mr. T, and I will be Mr. to everybody.
He tells a story just by his appearance.
Yeah.
His appearance was very busy. Very baroque, if you will.
Right, but there was there was meaning behind all of it.
And he loves Adidas, which I'm all about. And then also there's always that photo of him, which people can talk about the war on drugs, just say no in retrospect about some of the politics of it. And,
of course.
How, what effect did it really have? But there's always that picture of Nancy Reagan on Mr. T's lap as Mr. T is dressed like Santa Mr. T. It is one of the greatest photographs in American history.
By the way, the worst Mr. T bit of pop culture was SNL did this Mrs. T sketch that was just garbage.
Yeah,
I remember vividly, and I'm like, it was always funny to me because it's everything. When people talk about Mr. T, it's hard not to be reductionist.
Yeah.
Right.
But you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because he's great.
Mr. T is the best. He's the best.
T rules.
T rules.
Jim, where can people find you on the internet, sir?
Well, you can find me at Comic Jim Bruce on Twitter. And I'll tell you this cool thing that I'm doing on Twitter that I think you might enjoy.
Yes.
I am telling jokes and not bombarding you with half-ass political opinions.
Sounds awesome.
One of the worst eras for dipshits with half an opinion. Like, I understand we all have to care and there's some fucking nightmares out there, but think about your opinion for a second before you post it. So if you go to mine, I'm as dumb as they come, but it's just jokes. It's just jokes. Well, I'll tell you one of my favorite new jokes I tweeted out, which was, once you try fresh, you'll never go back to canned Pass. It's a solid joke, right?
Yeah.
That's what you get there.
Custom made for our audience too.
That
I
is
love
what
it.
you get there. And if you want to come see me do stand-up, check any number of Indian casinos. I'm probably there.
and do follow Jim Bruce. I'm gonna
And if you're new to the show, by the way, go all the way back to our archives to episode 4.
Yeah.
I mean, back a scant 196 episodes and hear Jim's first appearance.
Two of my favorite episodes early on for the longest time was the episode with Jesse Case and the episode
Waffle House with Jesse Case
with
and
Jim Bruce, and those
Quantum
were in
Leap
the
with Jim Bruce.
first the first cluster of episodes that we recorded. 'Cause we recorded 4 episodes early on, and it was a special way to start it up. Jim Bruce is absolutely hilarious, and he is one of the best people in stand-up.
Yeah.
You know, like early on when I started hanging around stand-up comedy, the first person to ever make me feel welcome was Jim Bruce. And a lot of people could say this exact
I was going to say,
same
I'll
thing.
second that. Actually,
He made you feel welcome. He would watch all the sets, and nobody does that. He would watch every set. And
I'm a
be
piece of shit. I never do that.
Yeah,
so.
and he was attentive, and he would always be constructive. Jim was the first person to actually make me feel welcome, and I think a lot of people would say the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
Especially in a place like, Westwood Brewing Company or the spot where it
Cafe on Urban.
Well, I mean, those two were just intimidating as all hell if you were a newcomer. So,
And he won so many Scoomies, they had to end them because they ran out of them.
I know. Between him and Heather Thompson, Jesus,
Oh yeah, Heather Thompson cleaned up at those.
Yeah, and I mean, as somebody that lost the last Scoomy to Jim Bruce for best joke, I can say this as somebody that's been vanquished by Jim Bruce.
I remember which joke it was too. My Billy Joel joke.
It was the Bill. Yeah. You beat the Truckzilla joke.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can we get it now that you mentioned it?
I was going to say
For the air.
You want to? Yeah, sure. I'm an older guy. I remember. I'm an older guy. You got to come to terms with certain things in your life as you get older. And one of the things I've had to come to terms with is, I guess I just really like Billy Joel now. I think that's something that happens to you. Billy Joel's great music, but Billy Joel doesn't rock. I think we can all agree that Billy Joel doesn't rock. There's even a song he has called Big Shot, where it's got a big guitar riff in the middle where he goes, "You had to be a big shot," and it goes, "Ba ba 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 ba," and you think, that's adorable, Billy Joel. That's adorable. You're trying to rock. I'll tell you one thing: if you're ever in a car and Billy Joel comes on the radio, nobody ever goes, "Oh, shh. This is my jam." No, nobody ever says that about Billy fucking Joel. Billy Joel's not your jam. Even if you're from Allentown, it's not your jam.
And then he followed it up with Les Mis with that being your jam.
Yeah, now my jam is Jean Valjean singing "Bring Him Home" from Les Mis, because I'm like, that song just makes me cry. And I go, hey, maybe crying's my jam.
And that I lost to that joke, and I am very happy because I voted for that joke.
Thank you.
Over my thing.
I like the idea of the less miserable soundtrack being my jam.
And the thing is, like a lot of good comedy, that's not really a joke so much as I listen to Les Mis a lot.
It's just some real
Jean
shit.
Valjean, honest to God.
I think I'll crank some Castle on the Clouds right now.
That song will break your heart.
But yeah,
I'm so happy that I spend the 200th episode.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Jim Bruce.
Thank you.
And also, I want to take the opportunity because we do talk about the attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
As our closer, but I want to, as kind of a joke, but seriously, I want to thank everybody that listens to the show and shares it with their friends. And,
it's amazing.
Have an incredibly positive group of folks that watch. And
that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing about it.
Listen to Jim Bruce's podcast if you want a podcast suggestion.
Oh yeah, a great one of my favorite podcast titles ever.
It's Who's This Now?
I love that.
So the premise of my podcast, if you haven't listened to it, and I know you haven't, but if you haven't listened to Who's This Now, it's a fake talk somewhere on a fictional network, and I have comics on, and I also have a second guest, which is an improvised character that the comic doesn't know they're going to do until they get there. And then I interview them as that. So it's an author, or as a celebrity, a politician, whatever, but non-existent. Like we had the tour guide, Brandy Posey, one of my favorite episodes. She did she was the tour guide for Narnia. So
that's great.
It turns out she was a fawn, which was my choice. She was a fawn.
Yeah, if you want to go back and listen, I know Pat's done that before.
Brett has done it.
I've done an episode before.
I've tried to get you on.
I know, but I remember one time, I think it was Pat called, and I was out in Long Beach or something.
Yeah. No, well, you'll be on.
Yeah.
We'll get him on eventually, but
yeah. Listen to John. But thank you so much for being such a great fan, and also. I want to thank Rivers because he put so much into this podcast.
I mean, thank you, Pat.
Editing it, promoting it, getting the T-shirts, getting this. I mean, Rivers does. Episode 200 is an appreciation of Mr. T, but it's also an appreciation of Rivers.
Oh, well, thank you.
The Mr. T of the podcast.
Right on.
Yeah. I did want to say real quick. So a listener actually reached out to us and wanted us to wish his son, who's an avid listener, a very happy birthday. He's got a birthday coming up later this week. So I just wanted to say happy birthday to Paulo up there in the Twin Cities, doing the hard work, delivering the damn mail, and listening to the Goods Pod while he does it.
But yeah, thank you.
But anyway, shout out to Paulo.
Yeah, shout out to the attitude of gratitude to everybody, and show the attitude of gratitude to the people in your lives.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/TheGoodsPod. And we're on Twitter @TheGoodsPod. Every episode ever, youtube.com/TheGoodsPod. Big shout out to our friend Richard Dean up there in the Klondike doing the hard work at TheGoodsPod.com. And check us out on iTunes and Google Play.
The microwave system.
The laser beam system.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't have the attitude of gratitude.
We pity the fool that don't got the attitude of gratitude.
Fucking A. We'll see you next week.
Happy birthday, Paulo.
Catch the action. Catch the mystery. On my show, the best show, Mr. T.
The Goods from the Woods was mixed, edited, and distributed by me, Rivers Langley. You can find the show on Twitter @TheGoodsPod. Our theme song was composed by DJ Smiles. Check him out on Twitter @DJ Smiles.